The next question I have is, what is the government? What's the role of what happens if we don't have it? What happens if we have certain types of governments? And basically start a series exploring all of these things. I'm going to act like I have absolutely no idea so we can start from scratch. And if you're new and you're into that kind of thing, these kind of questions, or you have more questions of yourself, or are interested in other perspectives, subscribe now and let's get into this. By definition, government is the governing body of a nation, state, or community. Second definition is the relation between a governed and a governing word. Really, that one doesn't make any sense to me. So let me go back and get some examples here so we can get to truth. The whole point of this is so that we can get to truth, and then we can have firm ground to stand on and get to the same conclusion rather than divisive conclusions, and defend the truth for each other as Americans. The action or manner of controlling or regulating a nation, organization, or people. The group of people in office at a particular time. Administration. Election of a new government. Another term for political science. Political science, what exactly is that? We got to really understand this. Political science, by definition, is the branch of knowledge that deals with systems of government, the analysis of political activity and behavior. Okay, there we go. We have a basis of what politics is. It's the debate or conflict between powers or someone or group that wants power. So the analysis of politics, activity, and behavior. This makes sense, right? Political science is the knowledge, understanding, the data, the process of learning and studying, the debate or conflict to get power. So if we go back to the government, it's the system that runs a community. What's the definition of governed? So the community is governed, govern, and look, there's some of y'all that are going to comment down below like, what a doofus, right? Hey, not everybody understands this stuff. We got to start from ground zero. There's a lot of young people in this audience that will probably discover this 10, 20 years from now, maybe, and have no clue what government means and why it's a good thing if we take care of it. So, hey, save those hate comments, the worst hateful comment you possibly can give me, especially attacking my character for going into something like this. I'll pin you to the top and share something real nice with you back. So to govern essentially means to rule or determine. Basically, I mean, it depends on what kind of government you got. We definitely got to dive into different types of governments and even the origins of very first government. But just understanding by definition, govern to decide for, to make decisions for you, and then, or rule over you, tell you what to do. I mean, I could be wrong. Let's look up a rule. Or another aspect of here is conduct the policy, actions, and affairs of state organization by people. So let's look up a rule. To rule, by definition, means to have power over, to control, or direct. If you've got dogs, you want to rule them. You want to make sure that they don't do something unsafe or that they're not supposed to. You're also going to train them. You're going to have fun with them. You're going to feed them. But you are the one-stop shop for everything they can or cannot do. Rule or have power, control over your dogs. I do not think people should be treated that way. There's maybe developmental things, right, in a certain kid's life maybe that need to have strict rules and boundaries in order for them to learn how to be a good citizen, a good person. And actually, there are some things that the government, we need somebody giving us rules and guidelines in order for us all to be good citizens and people. because we're not going to get along with everybody. Not all of our neighbors are going to like us. We're not going to like all of our neighbors. Not everything that we do is going to be acceptable or okay. Not everything we think. Well, I mean, look at some of the powers that do be at bay, do are at B, are being, are at are out there that have absolutely no accountability or ruling. They're setting rules up though. That's pretty jacked up. It sounds to me that rule over or control, um, or to give or state as a considered decision, or to mark with lines drawn along. Yeah, we're not going to get into like a ruler, like art, but to give or state as a considered decision. This is important. Essentially, we need rules, and we need rule for the common good of man. Well, I mean, this might even lead into why the Constitution was even written, right? We need something to aim for, to rule, to measure our life. So maybe that artistic example does apply here. We need something to measure our life to. We need something to be good citizens for, and help guide us. Because not every thought is a helpful thought. Not every action is a helpful action. We need some consequences and need to know what those possibly are, especially if it's unconstitutional. Well, we're going back to the beginning. So let's assume there is no government, no constitution, no nothing. Legend has it, some of the first people were pretty immoral, and one of the first brothers killed his other brother because he was jealous. There were no rules, no government, no nothing. Until shortly after that. Seems like it's kind of important. Now let's go back to govern. What's a simpler phrase for government? To govern, governed, governing, is to exercise continuous sovereign authority over, especially to control and direct the making and administration of policy in the country was governed by a king. All right. Well, that begs the question. We know what authority is, don't we? Maybe we should look that up too. Let's look up sovereign. Sovereign is ruler, a supreme ruler, a singular, on top of the heap ruler. Well, ruler tells us what to do or gives us something to measure our quality of life and citizenship to. So sovereign is a ruler. So to exercise continuous ruling authority, so controlling authority or power, authorization, the power to write, to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. So to govern is to exercise continuous, ongoing power to tell people what to do or what they can't do, to control and direct them. That seems pretty straightforward. Seems like most powers are sovereign, and or when there's at least one ruler, they're governed on some way, shape, or form, whether that's positive or negative, helpful or harmful to their lives. Also, to control legal procedure for an action, practice, or process. The opposite of govern would be what it looks like is archaic government or manipulation, to control the speed of a machine, especially by automatic means, or manipulate that, or to control, direct, or strongly influence the actions and conduct of. We see a lot of archaic manipulation going on right now in one side. Hey, this is just a thought, but we have several political conflicts going on internationally, nationally, and between one empire and another empire. When this nation was first created, we had multiple political parties. It wasn't just left and right. And somehow we came to an empire being built on blackmail and really interesting and not helpful ideologies that were originally helpful to people, But once you start agreeing to certain small things and not noticing the influence that's happening, the worse and worse things get, and the more the corrupt or archaic manipulation comes and surfaces until it's way too late. We see a lot of that going on. Based on all of this, government and powers can be quite dangerous. But without it, what would happen? All right. So let's just figure out all the different possibilities of government slash non-government. Here we go. Parliamentary Education Office. Not that that's any better, but it's a .gov, so it's a little bit more reputable than Pinterest or Reddit. Reddit's got a lot of smart Americans on it, but let's take it from here. Apart from democracy, which we're about to lose, hopefully not. But apart from that, other forms of government look like this: monarchy, where one man, top of the head of the state or group of people, is the supreme leader. Whatever he decides goes. Sounds a little bit like a cult, doesn't it? If everyone has to drink the Kool-Aid, you got to do it in a monarchy situation, whether it's good or bad for you. Then we got a dictatorship, which is the rule by one person with supreme authority. So this could be, what I'm thinking, a man or a woman or a confused individual, but a man or a woman that dictates what you get to do. I don't like those kind of shoes that you're wearing. I don't like that hat. So you can't do that. You can't wear that. You can't do that. Well, that's a pretty simple, silly expression, but you know what? I've got health issues. I've got nose issues. I got to eat a certain type of food, take a certain kind of medication. And a dictator can say, nope, you can't have that medication. You can't wear a nose strip. You can't eat that kind of food. In fact, I'll give you the opposite. Take all that food that you worked really hard for and eat it for myself. That's a dictator. Or that's an example of a dictator. Oligarchy is where a country is governed by a few people. So there's a little group of henchmen that get to decide what's going on. So it's not somebody by themselves. It's a group of people at the table, a very small group of people at the table. Maybe a family. Maybe a couple group of con men that happen to be friends that want a lot of cash and want to steal from people without doing a lot of work. Oh, all of this sounds very, very, very close to home, doesn't it? Theocracy, where a country is governed according to religious rules, usually by ordained members of that religion, clergy. Theocracy. Well, we have some religions and cults that have or are trying to do that, or trying to push their agendas and turn the other cheek for certain things here. And that doesn't sound like that should be stepping in the place of governing certain people based on religion, because not all religions are very good for you. Actually, some religions require that you die unless you convert to them in very heinous ways. You kind of got to put them all in one bucket. Should the religion be governing the people in that way? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. One party rule, which is where a country is governed by only one political party and other political parties are not allowed at all. Well, we're getting pretty damn close to that, aren't we? That's a problem. That's a big problem. But that's like one big circle jerk of crazy influential people that really like, I don't know, controlling your devices and controlling your food and controlling your medication and control. Oh, that sounds familiar too. Democracies, when people have a say in the governing of their country. For example, a say, okay? Not a fist, not a screaming match, not a bullet, a say. For example, by electing people to represent them in a parliament. All right? That's a republic. That becomes a republic, democratic republic. For someone to represent them, or a representative democracy. One person, like kind of like what school was supposed to be. One teacher for a group of folks or a localized group of folks represents and distills that message in a really clear way to the top with that and then to the people. But that ain't really what's going on. So like rhinos, teachers, it's all jacked up right now. Well, what's a parliament? A parliament is the House of Parliament. Well, that was helpful, wasn't it? Legislature. In the UK, it's the highest legislature, consisting of the sovereign, the House of Lords, and the House of Commons. Well, that sounds a little bit like a oligarchy. So let's look at House of Parliament, legislature, a legislative body of a country or state. Look, this stuff. All right, here we go. Finally, we're getting somewhere. For anyone that had no idea what this meant. And again, just to remind y'all, there are some folks out there that have no idea what the government is. Maybe they're trying to become legal citizens. Maybe they're trying to figure out why things are so jacked up. Maybe they're young and they don't want to be dumb anymore. You know what I mean? Trying to get some wisdom in their life. Or maybe they're 40-year-old virgins. I don't know. But everyone deserves to go down the rabbit hole of getting to the truth. So let's get to it together. Legislative means lawmaking. So anything that has to do with legislature or legislative, it means the power to make laws. Okay, laws. Well, what the hell are laws? Laws. Here we go. This looks like it's going back to the ruling, right? Laws are the system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. Let's distill it. You got to do stuff. You can and can't do certain stuff. You got to live your life and you got to be a good citizen. Here's how to be a good citizen. Here's what will happen if you're not a good citizen. If you break the law, then here's the consequences. Depending on the law broken and the behavior done, there's levels of consequences to that. That makes a lot of sense. That sounds important. And shouldn't we all be able to vote against the law? Let's say a ridiculous law that somebody maybe got mad at their neighbor and said, you can't carry your ice cream cone in your back pocket in Texas or something like that while walking your cow down the street just because they were mad. Well, I'd like to vote against that just in case one day I might be out on a summer day, have to help my kids while walking a cow at some point down the street. If I happen to be in that area of the country and need to put my ice cream cone, that's, conveniently can be placed in my back pocket. I don't know, but some ridiculous laws like that even can be voted for or against with a democracy, but not with the other types of government. I mean, we all should have the right to put our ice cream cones wherever it would be lawfully necessary in order to enjoy that ice cream cone or be able to live a quality life. Hell, if we wanted that ice cream cone to melt in our pocket, we should be sure as heck able to do so without going to jail. So here we go. Here's a couple examples of a democracy or parliament, which is that group that creates the laws. Australia is a representative democracy. This is a system in which the people vote for delegates to represent their interests in a parliament in making laws. A group of folks making laws. Let's just triple check that. Yep. So what are delegates? And see, the questions are never ending. My battery's about to die. That's all right. Delegate or representative. A delegate is just a fancy word for someone you delegate to do something or represent for you with the laws or the interests that you have. All right, here we go. In Australia, members of parliament are elected, voted for, put into place. They're delegated by a vote to the Senate and the House of Representatives to represent the Australian people and make laws on their behalf. Well, It sounds like the same here, but there's actually quite a few folks that aren't really representing the best interest of the people, but themselves. This sounds actually kind of important. Where do we lose our representation? There's actually some really good representatives out there that are speaking out, that are sharing content, but they're not quite as loud as some of the others, as well as those that are confused and just emotional. Just emotional, not logical, don't even understand this stuff. Well, you now understand this stuff a whole lot more than a whole lot of other Americans, or could be, would be, should be Americans. Let's see how far we could get before my battery dies, because this is worth it. Other types of government. Well, it's primarily has to do with power and fight and conflict, the debate for power. There's several other governments that I didn't get to yet to consider in today's world. Of course, we got democracies, which is worth fighting for, not taking over. Totalitarian regimes, we should figure out what that is exactly. It sounds kind of like dictatorships and oligarchies. And sitting between these two would be authoritarian regimes and hybrid regimes. So authoritarianism is exactly what? The enforcement or advocacy of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. So you have to serve in this cause, otherwise we'll what? Kill you, put you in prison. You need to convert to this religion, otherwise what? We'll chop your hands off, poke your eyes out, and kill you in the middle of the street with a rock. And your family. That doesn't sound okay at all. What is totalitarianism? So it sounds like a dinosaur. A system of government that is centralized and dictatorial and requires a complete subservience to the state. So well, in this case, it's like the elites, and then the peasants, and then the poor, and then the outcast, and then the other. And if you don't completely do everything subservient, I mean, allow soldiers to ransack your house and take everything from you, do unsafe, ungodly things to you and your family, then what? You could die. You could be. Imagination is endless in what could happen in that kind of a government. Thank God we don't have that in the United States yet. There would be no talking. There would be no standing out in the streets disagreeing with the possibility of, I don't know, preserving your vote in democracy. Plato, ancient Greek philosopher, discusses the republic many times, and there's different 5 types of regimes: aristocracy, timocracy, oligarchy, democracy, and tyranny. So let's dive a little bit into that. We know what oligarchy is, democracy. Let's look at aristocracy. Aristocracy is rule of the best class, the best race. That doesn't sound right at all. It sounds kind of fascist to me. We all should strive to be the best versions of ourselves, but that one doesn't sound right. Let's see, timocracy, what is that? Honor worthy, whose wealth required them to contribute more to public expense, enjoyed greater political privileges in proportion to their means. Actually, we see a lot of that in private organizations. Yeah. Okay. Whoever has the most money and wealth can give it to some causes or donate to get better status. That is a democracy. Let me just review. It's aristocracy, the best power of strength, the places of power of the best privileged ruling class. Yeah, that sounds wrong. Tyranny is absolute ruler. Hands down, no questions about it, the absolute ruler. In the modern English usage of the word, absolute ruler is an unrestrained law, that can set anything without having any people's vote, without having any people's representation, without having any kind of legitimate any reason for the rules. So someone one day could just decide to take off the heads of anybody that happens to have short hair. That doesn't sound right either. That is tyranny. They can make up the rules, slip the rules. Wow. None of that could be going on in the world right now, can it? All right. Well, there's a couple things that I'm concerned about. We need to figure out, let's say, in the best case scenario, we didn't need government. Okay? What would happen? Well, what is it called, first of all? Anarchy. Really? It's often anarchy. So if we had no government, what would anarchy be? Lawlessness. No rule or measure of any kind of morality or positivity or anything to measure up to being good citizens or good human beings in the world. Yeah, we've definitely got some historical accounts of anarchy. Political disorder. Everyone's fighting each other for power. They call it a disorder due to the absence of governmental authority. Shoot. Do we have any groups of people that are really, really fighting for anarchy right now? So that's what happens with no government. People's lives are on the line. People's hard-earned property, food, everything is on the line for that one. Tax dollars. Well, if there wasn't any government, there'd be no tax dollars, but you get what I'm saying. So, there's something that's floating around out there, this idea of socialism and what that turns into. So if we have no government at all, it's anarchy. It's like the purge. It's disgusting. But if I'm going to die, I might as well speak the truth and share some of this information with everyone. If anarchy's where we're headed, hopefully not. Let's defend our nation. But what's socialism? The definition of socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. So we want a real democratic and pluralist left party, one which unites all those who believe in socialism. Well, that's a direct quote from the definition of Oxford. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. Policy or practice based on the political and economic theory of socialism. Well, no duh. The debate over whether to move away from free markets and toward socialism. Oh, free markets. Free markets. Here we go. Now we're going down economy scaled. What's a free market? An economic system in which prices are determined by unrestricted competition between privately owned businesses. Well, in socialism, you wouldn't really have a choice, would you? You wouldn't be able to choose what color fanny pack you wanted. It would all be determined for you. The price, if they wanted to set the price at $1 million, then maybe that's what they do, right? Same with the shoes. Wow. Hey, if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments below how idiotic I am being, and either you can trash me or educate me. Either way, the worst comment gets pinned to the top, and I'll share something else with you too. Here we go. This is kind of interesting. In Marxist theory, we gotta learn a little bit about that. A transitional social state between the overthrow of capitalism and the realization of communism. Here we go. No government, we've got anarchy. Everyone's just fighting each other for whatever they want to survive. Survival of the fittest. Anarchy. That sounds pretty terrible. Then we get socialism. Economically speaking, everybody gets access to the same thing, and it's not very interesting. I don't know. I like wearing my size clothes. I don't like sharing the same size as maybe someone that doesn't, need the same thing. I also like wearing a certain other style. I would like not to match everybody else around me. In Marxist theory, so what the heck? We got socialism, next is Marxism, and then next is communism. Well, Wow, let's look at that. Marxism. Be careful here, folks. In economic theories of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, later developed by their followers to form the basis for the theory and practice of communism. So, the theory and practice of communism. Holy cow. It's the next freaking step. So what is it in simple terms? All right. AI, what the heck is Marxism? Says history is a class struggle between the rich owners and the workers, where capitalism exploits workers for profit, leading to inevitable revolution and creation of a classless communist society where resources are shared equally. It's a critique of capitalism, viewing society through the lens of economic conflict, and aims to overthrow the current system to achieve true equality. Well, look, I got no problem with capitalism, which we should learn here too. I love being able to provide, I love being able to make this video and possibly maybe someday, if not already, it gets monetized and make music about this kind of stuff. That's great. I can make some money on the side. Maybe, right? If enough people find value in it, I think that's valuable. I've sold candles before. I've done videos for people before. I've helped people. I've created things for people. I like being able to do that. I like that about capitalism. I like being able to buy nose strips. I don't want the government controlling whether I can breathe or not. So I don't think capitalism's the main problem. I do have a problem with monopolies and the Rockefeller and the Rothschilds mentality about controlling things. So don't get it twisted. There's definitely a problem with the powers at be in the classes. The poor get poor, the rich get rich. But we can't get rid of the working man. Dude, I love getting Amazon. That's very helpful sometimes. There's some things I can't find locally. You know? The delivery trucks. We need those guys to keep this world working. If we don't have that, think about all the food that you get in the grocery store, especially with how farmers are treated nowadays. They are literally being starved out of the market. Farmers, good homegrown farmers, either they gotta put a lot of chemicals in those foods or they got huge debts that the government or the investors get to control those farms essentially for these machines. They are charged an arm and a leg, and they are capped at the prices that they can set to make their money back. Farmers being starved out, and we're importing a lot of this food. Without truckers, to be honest with you, a lot of us would starve anyways. That's the working man. That's blue collar, creating things, creating buildings. If we didn't have blue collar construction workers, man, and a lot of the people that like to listen to my music, I tell you what, that we wouldn't have had a country to begin with, first of all. Second of all, you wouldn't be able to order your little Gucci bag. You know, you wouldn't even have the ability to think whether you wanted to be confused about what you were going to wear on genders and all kinds of stuff like that. There wouldn't be none of that. Okay? Which, on one degree, there shouldn't be any of that. But, you know, just simply put, I don't agree with what's being said here. I don't think this is right. And I don't think that's the right way to point fingers. If you legitimately worked for something, you didn't have dirty money, you didn't commit fraud through the government, then I'd love to learn from you. I'd love to learn how you made all that money and kept it and did smart and helpful things with it for your family and future generations. We could dive into every single one of these even deeper and further, but for now, just having a brush up of like different types of governments and economic theories and thought processes, that's all we can kind of go into right at this moment. If you're interested in a more in-depth of each of these, stick around. if you're into that kind of thing. We got to make it very, 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 very clear, though. Okay. By definition, not just me ranting, what is capitalism? For anyone who doesn't know, capitalism is private enterprise or an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit. I think that's fair if done lawfully. If no fraud is happening and let's say I'm the axe guy. I can make axes out of wood and I have iron forge abilities. Then I am the axe guy. I should be able to control the income, the money, the resources that I get for developing axes. That's important. No one else, nothing else. And no one or nothing should be able to take that from me either, like taxes and whatnot, in my opinion. You should be able to willingly contribute to different causes and things that would genuinely help you in the community by choice. Wouldn't that be a little bit more in the vein of democracy? I think so. But we have a representative democracy here. And some of our representatives aren't doing what's for the best interest of the people like that. So we might not get that anytime soon. Hopefully. You know what? Some states are doing that, are caring about people's hard earned money. There we go. Capitalism. If you're the milk guy, you deserve to get what is worth your product and trade that wherever you damn choose. That's where we get into some of the current day complications of things. So we should definitely dive into that. But let's move on. If Marxism is a direct attack on capitalism, and it's essentially the level up from anarchy and essentially socialism into communism, what the heck is communism? By definition, communism is a political theory derived from Karl Marx, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. Well, example, her home country was thrown into turmoil following the fall of communism in Europe. Turmoil. This sounds terrible. It's actually similar to collectivism, which we should definitely check out here in a second. But, hey, this is a class war. Rich people get killed, and the stuff they have gets distributed to the others. It's an extreme Robin Hood scenario. Am I wrong? Let me know. But that sounds terrible. If you worked really hard and let's say have a mansion, own 300 acres, and have a big family, and have wealth, and pay other people, have jobs, and all that kind of stuff, and you have nice things. It's not just fall apart essentials. This political theory says it's okay to go to your house and graffiti on it and ransack it and break your windows and take it for the well-being. It's everyone's publicly owned property. That means that anybody could come to your house at any time and any place. You don't have any privacy. There's no sacred family bonding or sacred family creation time, if you know what I mean. None of it. You don't have the right to bear arms. Everyone can basically steal from you. You don't have security cameras. You can't even do this kind of thing. You can't even make your own YouTube videos because no one would have the cameras. At a certain point, nobody would have cameras unless everybody would have a shitty camera. That'd be a problem. And to be paid according to their abilities and their needs. Well, everyone has to work here except for people at the top. Well, I need $1 million. I ain't going to get paid that if I don't work hard for it. Well, this is saying your abilities. If you don't have the abilities, then you ain't going to get paid for it. But what if, based on your needs, based on your reasonable needs of what you need to live? Well, they could decide that you only need $10,000 to live every year. And let's say you've got 6 kids and you're of a not preferable class of person. Let's say your hair's short and they want to discriminate against you. That's basically kind of part of what it's saying, especially if you were one of the top of the top. You're especially going to be punished for hard work. So your hard work's going to be taken. Everything you worked hard for is going to be taken. You won't even have anything. Now, in theory, it sounds like everyone would have access to shoes and everyone would have access to cameras and 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 all the things they need based on their abilities and different things. Well, there's not a whole lot of people with high IQs and abilities. There's not a whole lot of people that even understand this stuff. There's not a whole lot of people that even have uh, work ethic. Not everybody has the same size shoes. But what if that is what's available? I don't want to wear no pink shoes that are like 10 sizes too small for me. I'm going to have to ingenuitively create a totally different kind of shoe. Well, I could get murdered for that. Is that helpful? I don't think so. What if those are my abilities? Well, hell, why why would legit capitalism be taken over in this way? Your health wouldn't be cared about. Your family is not really cared about. Eh, And this is ruled by the other types of government that get to tell you what to do. Right now in America, we get to choose whether we wake up on time. We get to choose what kind of food we want. We get to choose whether we want to work hard or not. We get to choose whether we want to start a family or not. In this scenario, we wouldn't have any of that. We would be punished extremely harshly for just thinking differently. See why it's kind of important to kind of think about this stuff, especially if you haven't thought about this stuff or you needed a refresher or you had no clue before. Well, this begs the question before we wrap up here. What is worse than communism? Fascism. Due to its foundation in extreme nationalism, racial superiority, and violent repression, often leading to genocide. Well, we definitely do not have that here in America. We want to be the best country ever. But in America, we love people that are of all kinds of different backgrounds, of all kinds of different skills, and encourage. Well, I'm speaking for myself. If you're someone who does that or agrees, comment down below. But speaking for myself, I love diverse legal diversity that is lawful, patriotic, wants to be the best version of each other and help each other with our different skills, while also having the right to work really hard at our own things, help each other progress. But we are all different. We are all worthy of peaceful disagreements. Nobody, in my opinion, is better than another based on pigments. Extreme nationalism is a terrible thing. Patriotism is a great thing. But just being American, proud to be American, where at least we know we're free for now. Stand up for the truth. This being the home of the brave, land of the free. That matters. If you're interested in diving down this series, what makes America different? What makes the Constitution and the Bill of Rights different than just a piece of paper that says rights on it? What makes Americans different? What makes the democracy one of the longest standing in history? What makes America worth fighting for? Why democracy itself is worth that? Just like our founding fathers fought for these freedoms from the tyranny of the king before colonization. If you're into that kind of thing, stay tuned. We're diving into it in the name of the First Amendment and sharing and spreading truth. And hopefully this will live on past the current events. Oh, and if you're kind of into counter hip hop, it's not like the message from every other hip hop rap artist that's infiltrated by, oh, I don't know, communism and child predators from Hollywood. Maybe hip hop that's got a message to it, that's patriotic, that's maybe a little more truth telling. You're in the right place. If you happen to be into that kind of thing, check out the details below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.